As you watch this, your brain is running a series of shortcuts, filters, and reconstructions. This process produces a feeling of conscious thought, yet it regularly reaches conclusions that are biased and invisible to you. This happens because the brain functions less like a camera recording reality and more like a builder constructing it. Every sensory experience is an assembly of partial information, filled in with predictions and assumptions. Color vision is a clear example of this construction. Color is not a property of the object you are looking at. It is a biological generation created by your visual cortex based on wavelength data, ambient light, and learned categories. Because of this, two people looking at the same wall in the same light can perceive different colors. From a neurological perspective, both are experiencing a different brain's construction of the same input. When physical perception is based on the brain's best current guess, the baseline for our experiences becomes individual. If the brain constructs the world we see, it creates a significant margin for error in how we think. This reconstruction process extends to your personal history. Recalling a memory is not a matter of playing back a stored file. Instead, the brain rebuilds the event from fragments, filling in gaps with what it expects to have been there. It then stores that new reconstruction back over the original, changing the memory slightly every time it is accessed. Research by Elizabeth Loftus demonstrated how easily this process is hijacked. By asking leading questions, her team successfully implanted detailed memories of events that never happened. Subjects remembered these fabricated events with confidence because the brain mistakes the ease of reconstruction for accuracy. The more fluid the story feels, the more real it seems. This leads to a counterintuitive reality. The memories you hold with the highest confidence are often the least trustworthy. Our personal histories are constantly being edited without our knowledge. Confirmation bias operates through this same automatic filtering. It is not a conscious choice, but a background process that favors information confirming what you already believe while discarding the rest. The brain prioritizes the satisfaction of being right over the effort required to be accurate. Updating a belief requires energy. Finding evidence to support an existing one is much easier. This scatter plot shows higher intelligence does not lead to more accurate beliefs. The correlation between IQ and finding objective truth is essentially zero. However, when the y-axis changes to complexity of rationalization, the trend line spikes. High intelligence builds sophisticated arguments for existing biases. Reasoning ability becomes a tool for defending conclusions the brain reached before the reasoning process even began. Most of what we call logic is actually emotional reasoning working backward. An emotion triggers first, and the brain constructs reasons to justify that feeling after the fact. Evidence for this comes from split-brain patients. When a patient's right hemisphere was shown an image causing a negative response, the left hemisphere, unable to see the image, instantly invents a plausible explanation for the mood. Neuroscientist Michael Gazzaniga calls this the interpreter. It takes whatever the rest of the brain produces and constructs a narrative to explain it retroactively. The self that feels like it is making choices is often just narrating decisions that have already been made by subconscious processes. The brain reaches for the coffee cup, and then the interpreter explains that you decided to take a sip. This explains the Dunning-Kruger effect. Those with limited knowledge lack tools to recognize their own competence, while experts often underestimate themselves because they are aware of the underlying complexity. The continuous, rational self you experience is a story generated by the brain to maintain a sense of order. Learning about these biases provides little to no protection against them. You can name the mechanism and describe the research while still falling for the bias in your next decision. This failure is architectural. Bias knowledge lives in the conscious reasoning layer, but the biases themselves execute in the automatic processing layer. A thick barrier separates the two, preventing conscious awareness from reaching the gears of the subconscious. Knowing how a bias works is not the same as being immune to it. Since we cannot rely on willpower or awareness to fix a compromised thinker, the answer is to change the process. This requires building external structures, systems designed to produce better outputs than your intuitive thinking can generate on its own. Effective structures include pre-committing to decisions before an emotional state arrives and recording predictions before an outcome is known. This prevents the brain from changing its memory after the fact. Socially, this means seeking people who will argue against your position and asking specifically for evidence that disproves your current beliefs rather than evidence that confirms them. Understanding that the brain is a storytelling machine is the starting point for building the checkpoints that hold it accountable. A brain that builds these structures is doing more accurate thinking than one that trusts itself without question.